Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 208 for Monday, August 29th, 2022. My name is Joel Duggan, and joining me, as always, is Jonny, aka Pixel Riffs. Hello, sir.
Hello, and we are not alone today. We have a guest with us who's been telling us all about his brand new home office studio space in the Render Distance, the extended version of the podcast, which you can listen to if you're a patron at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. But we're delighted to welcome impulseSV back to the show. Impulse last joined us for episode 60, which probably means we're all older and wiser now. You can find him on YouTube at youtube.com/impulseSV and impulseSV2, streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/impulseSV, and on the, I'll say, relatively new Imp and Skizz channel, youtube.com/impandskizz, where he and his good friend Skizzleman throw themselves into challenging Minecraft scenarios, and also recently started their own podcast. Impulse, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. You said this is episode, what'd you say, 208? And I was last on episode 60, so...
Oh, yes.
If I do some math, you've done 148 episodes since I was last on. That is crazy.
I actually went back to the archive and found the episode that you were on, and it was in 2019. The world was a different place back then in a number of ways. And so, yeah, like we have waited a very long time to be able to talk to you again, but it's always great to have guests back. And you can tell us all about what's going on in your Minecraft life. But before all that, why don't you tell us a bit about the Imp and Skizz podcast?
Sure, yeah, it's a brand new endeavor, and basically, you guys know, Imp and Skizz it's me and my good buddy Skizzleman, and we've done a lot of things together. We've created, you said relatively new, it's been just about over 2 years since we created our own Imp and Skizz channel, where we were doing a lot of Minecraft stuff together. And we decided, you know what, let's do some podcasting. And I can tell a whole story about how that came about later. But so we started the podcast, and basically we're not talking about Minecraft. We're going to let the experts, Joel and Jonny, cover that on the Spawn Chunks. You know, we're not going to try to creep into your space. Don't worry. But we decided, you know, we've been friends forever. We've got a lot of things in history together. We've got a lot of good stories. We've got a lot of insights on life and the world of content creation. Let's just sit down and just talk to each other and record it and let the audience kind of be flies on the wall. We post it on our YouTube channel, so we do have a video segment portion as well as the regular podcast material that goes out on all the podcast platforms that you would expect. And we've done 3 have been released, and we actually just recorded 2 more because, you know, Skizz lives a very busy life. He's going out of town, so we had to kind of get ahead of it. So we got 2 in the hopper, and we release them every Friday now, and it's been such a fun endeavor. So, and that was part of the reason why I kind of was like, yes, I'd love to be back on the Spawn Chunks and you know, be here with you guys, because now I've got a little experience with podcasting under my belt. And part of it was after I did the, you know, episode 60 with you guys, I realized that I really had fun doing it, and I wouldn't mind doing my own someday. So awesome. Thanks for the inspiration.
Yeah, happy to have been that inspiration for you. And can I just say, I'm incredibly jealous of you guys getting to record in the same room, because like with me and Joel, we've never even met in person at this point, because obviously the world kind of changed in 2020 and we weren't able to like travel and do conventions together if we were going to do anything like Minecraft Festival, like that all had to be cancelled. And so I think in a parallel universe, Joel and I have probably at least been able to meet and do one in-person podcast together. But yeah, seeing you guys sit down and shoot the breeze about life is so refreshing, and it's obvious that you guys have such a rapport after knowing each other for a long time. So it's a very natural feeling podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we enjoy it. And yeah, being in person definitely has its advantages. You know, we can pick up on signals of when somebody's ready to pass the baton to the next, you know, person, and facial expressions really do help too. So, but you guys have done, considering, wow, that you've never met in real life. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's like crazy.
I mean, we live at opposite sides of the Atlantic, and I just haven't been traveling over Joel's way for a while. And yeah, like it again, if we get the opportunity to do like a Minecon show or anything like that in future, like we'll definitely do it. But man, it's just the remote thing works for us, I guess, and it's one of those things about the Minecraft community where there aren't really any barriers of distance because so much of the stuff takes place online. We just naturally fell into that.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you guys have done a wonderful job being remote.
Thanks, man. And for me, I like to think about it as becoming fast friends, because I started the Sizzle Cafe, my other podcast, with a couple of my buddies, much like you and Skizzleman, that I've known for years and years and years. Like we went to high school together, and the feeling of starting that show, even though the co-hosts have changed since then because those guys have got families and they've become very busy, that kind of ease of talking to one of your buddies about the kind of stuff that you're into, when you know that feeling, and then you start up a new podcast like the Spawn Chunks, as I did with Jonny, back 2018, I think it was, Jonny now.
Yeah. The dawn of the update aquatic. So yeah, 2018.
So, but it had that same feeling of like, I knew that Jonny and I could just talk about Minecraft for days. It's like, okay, we have to do something with this, because when it's that easy to talk to a co-host, the distance doesn't matter. But I have done some recording with Comics Coast to Coast, a show I used to do years ago, with those guys live at a convention. And that is really fun, especially after being remote for so many years, because Brian Dunaway was in North Carolina, still is, and Matthew Ducharme is in Boston. And so for us to get together in Utah, of all places, and do like a panel together and do like a live recording was awesome and weird at the same time. It's like, this is great. We don't feel like we're stepping on Matt because his internet connection sucks, like there's all that kind of stuff that was fun to tiptoe around.
And in front of an audience as well. Like, it's got to have a very different energy to recording just at home and feeling like, oh, hey, I can cut out anything. Like, if there's a weird, awkward silence or whatever, I can just zip, that's gone. But no, that's so fun. So aside from the podcast, obviously, you've got plenty going on in Minecraft. What's new in your Minecraft life, Impulse?
There's a lot going on. Typical me. I like to do a lot of different things all at once and just bite off more than I can chew with just about everything I tackle. But as far as Hermitcraft goes, if you've been watching Hermitcraft, you'll know that I have 3 huge projects all going on kind of simultaneously, and I jump between them, which is part of a strategy that I use anyway for Hermitcraft, is just to kind of keep me from getting bored of something. I like to have multiple things going on and jump between them. So I have my Dwarven base, so I've taken on a Dwarven character this season, which we can talk more about later. But I'm building a Dwarven style base in a mountain, which included a lot of digging. I think I've done over 500,000 blocks of digging so far with just like stone alone. And I've got an industrial district going up because you guys know me, I'm an automation guy. I like to do my farming. And then recently I started tackling a mega shop. I was tired of building different like little small shops for every little thing I wanted to sell. So I decided, you know what, let me kind of take on the idea that Sahara took in season 6 and just build one giant building and be able to sell everything in it. And then I don't have to continue building like a new structure every time I want to sell a new thing, which eventually I want to sell, pretty much everything I can. But we'll see how much goes into that. And so far that just building the shop on its own has taken a month, and I'm only about halfway there. So it's a ginormous project. But aside from Hermitcraft, I decided finally to bring my single player hardcore world off of a hiatus that it was on. I decided to take a break when Hermitcraft started to focus on that. But it's been 3 months, and decided, it's time to pick that up off the shelf and get back into my hardcore world. I like playing hardcore. It's the first ever hardcore world I've played, and it has a different vibe to it. I do it only on stream. I do record the streams, and then I have it edited so that there's a kind of a smaller version that people can consume on YouTube as well. But it's very casual in that I only play it while on stream. So I only put 3 hours of work into it a week, and it's a very kind of slow, chill process to creating things in Minecraft in front of people, and they get a better view of, oh, this is how long stuff actually takes, because how much stuff do we cut out, of like regular episodes that we do. And it's like, I'm going to go grind for some resources, and then, quick whoosh later, here they are. And really in reality, it was 10 hours of your life. So now, with my hardcore world, people actually get to see the grind and feel it. And I think they connect some people really do connect with that slower pace. And then like it's relatable to them because they know the grind themselves if they play. So I got that going on. And then my third channel, so I have a second channel that I put all my stream stuff on. My third channel is the Imp and Skizz channel, and we actually started a brand new series as well called Skyblock Evolution. So we've always loved the concept of Skyblock worlds, and our buddy Draconis has put together a data pack which allows Skyblock to be kind of taken to the next level by allowing for certain mobs to drop certain blocks you couldn't normally get in Skyblock, which allows us to do a lot more. And it's called Skyblock Evolution. And he recently released a second revision of it, so it's version 2 now. So we decided to get that kicked off again. And again, it's another series where we basically don't spend a lot of time off camera. We do a little bit of grinding sometimes between week to week. We stream it once a week every Tuesday, and it's mostly on camera stuff. And we get it off to our editor, and they edit it down to a consumable version for YouTube, and people have a choice. They can either watch the long form version of our live streams, or they can watch the shorter form version that's kind of highly edited by our editor. You may know the Puka. We use him as our editor, and he does a great job. He's an animator at heart, so he likes to throw in some animations too, which makes the editing fun. But all that's going on all at the same time. I'm juggling all the plates, you know.
Yeah, so my follow-up question was going to be, when do you ever sleep? But considering that you've got you got a couple of people editing your hardcore series or your Skyblock series, I think that's a good balance. Do you still edit the Hermitcraft stuff yourself, though? Is that still part of your workflow?
I do, yeah, I do. With Hermitcraft, it's a little easier to be an editor with, because you kind of know what you're doing as you do it, right? So
yeah,
you know, like I have like an outline of each episode that I follow, and so I know I'm going to hit record and do this and say this, and then stop recording, and I just throw that in the timeline, and I know that's my clip, you know. Mm-hmm. So editing happens as I'm recording versus these other ones where it's been like a 3 hour of just full blown nonstop recording that somebody needs to go in and cherry pick the best moments out of. Yeah, those kind of things I don't have time for anymore. But yeah, editing Hermitcraft is definitely something that I kind of hold close to my vest, you know. Like, it's something that I don't know if I'll ever give up, because it's kind of my baby, you know.
Yeah, and it's part of the creative process as well. It's like you're showcasing the builds and everything, you're doing all of the stuff on the server, but it's about how that ends up getting given to the audience, and that's still part of, like, the video is still going on even when you hit stop recording, right? Like, you're still trying to think about what the next beats are of the videos. So exactly. It makes sense that that's something you want to hold on to. I'm kind of the same. Like, I've considered maybe getting an editor in to do a couple of things, but I like the editing process so much. It feels like part of it for me.
Right. Yeah, same here.
I was the same way when I was doing my own editing content. It was, as an animator previously, I had that same sort of sense of timing, and I feel like you put on a director's hat when you're recording clips and planning to edit them together. Whereas if you're just doing, when you're doing a live stream, I don't know if I have the same directorial hat on, right? It's more task oriented, where I'm just trying to do the build and be entertaining and fun, but not necessarily thinking about like what shots look good or the timing of going from one thing to the other. And I think that when you're editing YouTube videos, that directorial thing kind of comes in a little bit heavier. What's it like, Impulse, working with an editor? Like, is there a lot of like letting go and just kind of like, is there a lot of back and forth with, you said it was the Puka was the editor?
Yeah, the Puka's his name. It's been seamless with him. You know, at first, obviously, you get nervous that they're not going to edit to the style you would want to see, or you might have a back and forth. I've not had any issues. I've handed everything off to him, and he's done a brilliant job with everything. And what's great is with an editor, sometimes as a content creator, you don't actually understand what's like funny or impactful to your audience, because you're in it. You know, you're doing it, and you don't really have the same connection to your content that a viewer would have. And with an editor like the Puka, he's basically, you know, started as a viewer / hopefully fan. And when he watches the things I've recorded, when he feels like something touched him as a viewer, he knows that needs to go in the content. It goes in the edit. And so he comes back and he'll emphasize certain things where I would have never emphasized that as the creator of it, because I didn't understand how much it would resonate with the viewers, and he does, because he's first and foremost a viewer himself. So that part's been really cool, and he's brilliant. If I could like lock him up and pay him full time, you know, I would. But you know, he's also got his life and other things that he's juggling too. So we try to be go easy on him, but we do have him doing, you know, both our Skyblock series and my Hardcore series again, and we're keeping him pretty busy. He's also done, we did animated shorts on our Imp and Skizz channel, which was a really fun endeavor where basically the whole thing is animated. They're shorts, so they're only about 1 minute to 2 minutes long, and Skizzleman would write the script and we would voice act it, and then we'd give it to Puka and he would animate the whole thing. And we've done, I think, three or four of those. And those are really fun. So I'm gonna use this opportunity to plug those videos. If you guys haven't seen them, go to the Imp and Skizz channel and search for animated shorts. You won't be let down. They're really cool. But yeah, I haven't had any issues with editing or having somebody else do the editing. He's come back and just everything has been top notch. So I couldn't be happier. And I hope nobody tries to steal them from me.
Of course, once you get a good editor, you want to keep that relationship going.
Yes.
Johnny, what's been on your plate for Minecraft this week?
So I've been working on building up my base on Empire's SMP. I have not done enough building there compared to some of the stuff that I've been doing elsewhere on the server. So last week, you may remember I was talking about building a giant skull in a jungle thousands of blocks away for Joey Graceffa's series. And then I came back to my base and was like, I don't have anything that big. Like, why am I not doing this at my own, like in my own backyard? So I've been working on building things that are more than just my hole in the wall that I was using for storage, the new storage catacombs area, and like the occasional ruins that I have. So I added a tower which houses 2 nether portals, one of which goes to the central nether, the other one goes to the nether roof, where we're just connecting for behind the scenes access to each other's bases. I'm building roads just to try and get a feel for the layout of the city that is eventually going to spring up around this area. And I just built a gatehouse on the Great Bridge, which was one of the earliest builds I did on the server. I built that to effectively lead into my area, and it's now got a big door in the center of it as well, that, is only slightly ajar. It's kind of like 3 blocks space from, I think, 11 or 12, whatever sort of width the bridge is. And so I'm starting to work a little bit more with shielding some of the builds behind that so that the player's perspective is through this narrow gap, and then it really like opens out once you step through the door and you can see some of the stuff around you. The stuff around you when you step through the door right now is the side of a cliff, but I am planning on terraforming that and adding a few more things around there as the road kind of goes down into the capital. So a lot of work going on there. And this week, most of the Empire's whitelist is out of town for Fwip's wedding. He lives over in Seattle, I believe, and he has a bunch of people from the Empire's crew going to visit him and hanging out. And he's, collaborated with them for years and years now, so they're all getting together. I am staying at home and aiming to get into people's bases and mess with them a bit. And it's not going to be pranks as such, but more kind of fun story-based builds and custom dungeons that they can get stuck into once they're back. Basically just kind of lining up content for them once they return to the server after their time away. So that's been occupying my brain. I should do a survival guide episode at some point this week, and I've got another couple of concepts for Empire's videos further down the line. I sort of want to start a museum on the server, both harkening back to the museum I did in Season 1 of Survival Guide, but also kind of my role on the server as somebody who's interested in history and preserving things and that kind of stuff. I got a couple of things planned for that. So yeah, it's all go on Empires right now, but I'm having a blast with it. It's coming together really well.
I really like the, I could say, almost Gothic-inspired architecture on the gatehouse.
Yeah.
It definitely reminds me of all of the inspiration you've been talking about over the last few weeks with Elden Ring.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's 100%. Like the towers on either side of this bridge are basically one portion of a building from Elden Ring that I just tried to sketch in creative and then thought, you know what, yeah, I'll just put an archway between the two of these and it can be like a massive entry gate. And the scale is going to be way different in Minecraft than it is in Elden Ring because the player scale is different, and obviously the amount of detail they can get in fully 3D modeled environments is going to be different to what we can do with meter by meter blocks. So I took a couple of creative liberties, as you do, put a lot of texture into it to try and, tie the whole thing together. And yeah, really happy with how this went. I had a couple of ideas for the door, whether it was going to be a big like wooden door with massive hinges or if it was going to be a portcullis for a while. and I ended up settling on just having a big door, and I'm happy that I did that because it was a lot less detail to throw together, and it also reads a lot more easily. Like, a lot of the rest of the structure is quite detailed, so the door, again, gives your eyes some place to rest a little bit. It's a recognizable massive wooden door compared to the rest of it, which you're just kind of looking around going, what is all of this?
I've always liked those kind of doors in Minecraft too, because like they remind me of the things that you see like cave trolls opening in Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah,
like that kind of heavy thing that the average person can't move. It has to be moved by a team or a mechanism or something like that.
Yeah, like I've actually got the brackets on the back of the door where you could imagine them putting like a massive log, like a huge piece of timber across to brace the gate against siege weapons or something like that. And eventually there'll be a wall around the whole thing as well. But yeah, I decided in the lore of the world, because I'm trying to build a picture of what happened to this ancient empire, that, when people have fled this capital, they've effectively abandoned it. They've left the door open because there's sort of nothing left to defend at that point. So it kind of gives an excuse for this giant door being open and also not really being able to move in Minecraft. But I'm still crossing my fingers for a day when they'll let us have doors that are bigger than 2x2, because I could really do with some stuff like that right now.
Just throw in their create mod, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I want to have like a mechanized portcullis. I want to have like gatehouses that actually function in the game. But that's like, that's create mod territory at that point. That's like, all kinds of mods need to go into making that actually happen.
That build is gorgeous. Jeez, I'm super impressed.
Dude, thank you. Yeah, no, it took a bit of sketching out, and it helped that Joey Graceffa had just dropped off a ton of prismarine, and so I was like, I'm going to make the roofs out of that, and that solves that problem entirely. But it goes, it's my first time actually getting to pair copper and prismarine together. I haven't really messed with that color combination, but it makes perfect sense for oxidized copper to go with that kind of stuff, and building the roofs out of prismarine meant that it can kind of look like a variant on that without me having to oxidize all the copper by laying it out in a 4x4 grid or whatever, because man, I'm missing having the machine I built on the first season of Empires that like lets the copper oxidize and spreads it all out using redstone and flying machines, because that was so useful. And since then I've not had a flat surface to lay out my copper on, and it's chaos. I need to have some kind of big like strip mine space somewhere that I convert into a copper aging field.
Impulse, are you using copper and prismarine in the dwarven base?
I am.
Or is it just... it is both. Okay. I knew you were using copper. I couldn't remember if you're using both.
Yeah, they're a great mix, as Johnny said. I'm using them inside my dwarven keep. They go great with deep slate, like that darker kind of grayish black material, and then up against the prismarine and the aged copper is just really nice look together. So yeah, I went with that, and I don't regret it. It's such a good color combination. But copper is not fun when you have to let it age, that's for sure. So I need to look into this redstone flying machine that you've created. This is the first I've heard of it, and maybe I can use it on the Hermitcraft.
Believe me, there are much better designs out there, but I had a lot of fun. This was one of the first things that I kind of built just from my own brain instead of it being just a basic resource farm. This is my first time getting into like redstone systems stuff and designing it from scratch. So it was fun, but there are, I'm sure, tons of people out there who can make much better ones. I can probably link you to some after we're done with the show. But before we get into that, let's ask Joel, what's new on the Citadel? What's new with you?
Well, there have been 2 steps forward and 3 steps back on the Taiga Hill Mansion build. It's my own problem being picky and trying to get things right, and in a lot of ways the builds on this West Hill town are planned, but then also fly by the seat of my pants. And I thought, this is going to be cool, I'll have a double door, those are cool looking in Minecraft. Well, that means that the entire build from that side is on an even number of blocks as opposed to odd, and it makes roof additions a lot tougher, because the style in the building has very pointy, very sloped roofs, and I'm trying to add some dormers or second floor rooms on the north side. And to get one central, it has a 2-block wide middle, which is really hard to make look pointy in Minecraft when it's 2 meters wide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I either have to go off center, or I've got these 2 kind of like castle turrets that kind of come out and create this cove for the entrance. And I was thinking about putting one room over each of those, but then then the roof touches the towers to the left and the right, and it became a whole lot of like, I call them tangents. I really don't like it when blocks in Minecraft touch on a 45-degree angle. You know, like it's just the edge of the voxel shape that touch, and there's no other real kind of like substantial connection. It drives me a little bit crazy. So I was hacking at that for the better part of a stream and just like ended up bailing on it and saying, okay, I'm going to come back to this. I need a break. Thankfully, the build is big enough and has enough facets that I can switch around and move onto different things. And so I added a second tower that serves as a staircase, both to go up as well as down into what will be hopefully a dank, creepy basement whenever I decide to do down there. And it also saves me from trying to fit the staircase inside of the building. So this main hall, I really didn't want to mess with the dimensions of the main hall. So having the staircase outside in this round turret really saved me a lot of space inside. And then inside I was able to add a new hearth. I switched the back wall from the placeholder cobblestone and andesite to deep slate. I still haven't done all the texturing, but it really adds a big difference inside where you've got this nice andesite and stone brick hearth against a deep slate wall. So the hearth really stands out as like, this is a focal point of the main hall. And then that chimney, of course, gets put on the outside, which breaks up the very flat, very monotonous shape of the rear wall. There's going to be some other things I have to add in there. I think it's such a tall building. I think I'm going to add like flying buttresses and like slightly more gothic stuff to kind of make it look like the wall is going to be held up by other things. It is on a cliffside, so that's cool. It means that I can do some pillars and have them go all the way down, maybe to the river. I don't know. That kind of stuff, I'm still kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And the inside, unfortunately, suffered a bit of a change when I did add those stone room dormers to the north side. The stone part, for them to look right, actually breaks through into the rafters of the main hall. And I'm not sure I like the stone coming in and breaking up the dark oak and spruce kind of pattern I had going on. So I'm trying to balance like, what's my priority in this design? Is it the hall? Is it how it looks from the outside? The north side is probably the hardest like face of the building to see. So I had to kind of step back and say, look, I'm putting a lot of work and getting a lot of frustration into this side of the building that is really not going to be seen that much. I'm seeing it because I'm flying around, but if I'm on the ground, you can barely tell that there's something on the roof. So I might have to rethink. And then just before I kind of logged off, I ended up doing a bit of groundwork and trying to figure out where the paths are going to go. And I like where that's going. I really enjoy this stone gate on the main road to a dark paved path. And there's going to be a garden around the back and more gates. And so it's going to feel like someone really rich and important, or someone that's part of an important guild or organization lives in this place. And that feeling I'm liking. It's just that I'm not sure if you guys experience this, but I mean, when you've got a good idea or you're trying to fix an add to something and it's just not jiving with the rest of the build. I mean, Impulse, you've done some massive builds in Hermitcraft. When you're adding to them, do you ever get that feeling where like you like the build, but the last 2 hours of work are just not working? And even though it's Minecraft and you can remove it, there's just this annoyance of having to do so.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've developed a reputation for redoing stuff. So, you know, I've had some issues with the statues that I've tried to add outside my dwarven keep, where I've just been tweaking them constantly, and I just can't get happy with it, to the point to now I'm just like, I'm thinking about just tearing them down completely or going with a completely different like model type for them and seeing if I'm happy. But I got a quick question for you, Joel, if I may. So It sounds to me like you are doing most of the design work of the Citadel kind of like live on camera, on stream, in survival. Are you doing any work on it behind the scenes in like a creative mode, or is it all just off the cuff?
It's all off the cuff. So everything is live on the weekends, on stream. I very rarely even log into Minecraft. Every once in a while, maybe I can't sleep, or I'll have a bunch of things that I want to collect, or I feel like there's redstone problems that I can't solve live on Twitch, and I just need silence in like a couple hours. But the only time I really log in is for like AFK farming, like collecting copper at a drowned farm, or fixing my gear, or leveling up because I need to name a bunch of stuff, or whatever that happens to be.
There's a certain freedom to build in survival like that, and just off the cuff. Like that's how I'm doing my hardcore world, and I've felt like this is just allowing me to attempt things that I probably wouldn't really attempt elsewhere. And if it doesn't turn out great, like, it's okay. I can be okay with that because it was just kind of done off the cuff. And if I kind of paint myself into a corner with certain things, like you've probably experienced too, I think it felt like you were mentioning that you're now presenting yourself a new opportunity to solve a problem, right? Like, how I shouldn't have built this with even number of blocks. I should have built it with odds so I could get an extra arch in or whatever. And then now you got to figure out, okay, what combination of blocks can I use to like still make this look good? And that's something that if you were building in creative, you would have just been like, oh no, I'm just going to cut this, move it over a block, and that fixes my problem. But since you're doing it in survival, you're challenged to now find a different way to approach that scenario. And so it's got its pros and cons for sure, but I felt a certain amount of freedom. And honestly, I prefer building in survival versus creative. Like, it is fun to design things, but I don't get as much satisfaction in the end product, especially when you build the whole thing in creative and then basically you're just kind of copy pasting it in a way, on the server. So that building process the second time around is not even close to as fun as it is the first time. So why not just, do it the first time in survival if you're confident with your skills of designing on the fly. So yeah, it's been a fun learning process that I've gone through as well. And I kind of see some of those same struggles that I've experienced on my hardcore world with some of the things you're mentioning. So I just thought that was interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, it has been a learning curve. And, I look back to earlier builds in this area because I've been in West Hill on the Citadel for almost 2 years now. And early on, it took way more planning to plan out the average house on the street. And now I'm just like, I'm going to build a house here. And I just go at it and know roughly from a quick measurement, yeah, this is 9x7. I can fit something that's going to look cool here. It's not too small. Like we can work it out. And I have been leaning into some of those, we'll say creative bottlenecks that you create for yourself, where you've decided to put a house here, but now you've got to figure out like, well, how does the path go between these two places? Or while you're building a house, you thought, actually, I've narrowed this space between these two buildings. I could make this a really interesting looking alley. I could do something cool with maybe some like gutters or drains or something interesting there. And I try to like lean into that. And one of the cool things about this mansion build is that there's about 6 different ways to get around, different staircases, different paths. And I like that inside it's functional. And that's the kind of thing that I lean into. So I'm trying to prioritize that inside and not sacrifice the outside. And that's why I haven't changed the blocks, because I feel the same way that you do about building in creative. I don't do it because I feel like I've done it already. And then when I go to transfer it into survival, I do just feel like I'm copy pasting and not really allowing for much, not creativity, but like the randomness, like the happenstance ideas that you just kind of get while you're doing stuff old school, like in survival. The other thing for me is that I'm a perfectionist, and doing things live on stream and getting stuck or just needing to move on so this project doesn't take 5 years is a really good exercise for me. Just like, okay, look, it's good enough. And if you are walking around on the ground in survival, you can't see this problem. So put it out of your brain and just let it be, because it's a minor thing. But I do find that when I build in creative, I'm always flying up above something and I'm looking at it from a perspective that other players on the server are very seldom going to see it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we kind of had the same thing on Hermitcraft. So in the spawn area, Pearl did like this giant statue. I forget what she called it, but it was one of those things where it's like perspective is everything. Like when you're on the ground and you're looking up at it, it's not as impressive as when you're flying in and seeing it and like its whole grandeur, So it's having that perspective of like understanding what most players will be like, what position will they be in when they see your build is actually super important when designing or building what you're doing, because Yeah, that makes the whole difference. Like you said, like most people aren't going to be seeing the top of a build unless they're just flying over with an elytra, and that's not typical, So you don't have to worry about that. But what they do see on on the ground is they're walking on the pathways and things like that. That's where you want to focus on your details. And so, yeah, it's just a good thing to keep in mind, I guess, for any builders that are out there trying to pick up tips or whatever. Is like really focus on what are the if you're on a multiplayer server, what are people going to be focusing on as they pass through is smart to think about.
We'll have plenty more tips for builders coming up. I think we have an email from a builder who wanted some advice on how to avoid comparing yourself to other builders out there and focus on your own style. But before we get into chunk mail, we've got some news to read. So, Joel, why don't you kick us off?
Indeed, there is a new Minecraft Legends trailer officially made its debut at Gamescom 2022. The trailer also appeared on the Minecraft YouTube channel. It gives us another look at the world of Minecraft Legends through rendered cinematics and gameplay footage. Also features an adorable badger mob, a few golems from the overworld, and a stone-armored piglin that rolls around like a boulder. More info about the Minecraft Legends game can be found at the Minecraft Legends page on minecraft.net. We'll have all of that linked in our show notes this week. Minecraft Now, on August 22 on the YouTube channel for Minecraft, featured an episode with the usual mix of developers Q&A, gameplay, community creations, and perhaps most importantly, Lady Agnes announced that Minecraft Live will indeed be returning this year on October 15th. We'll have a link to the timestamp to where Lady Agnes is talking about that in the show notes.
We also wanted to share some Twitter activity from Kayla Sara, who shared an update to Bedrock Creator Tools over on Twitter. The Minecraft Creator Project Manager tweeted an update to the tutorial and Maker Creator documentation for Bedrock Edition, which includes 3 YouTube videos going over the basics of modeling, texturing, and animating a new entity in Minecraft Bedrock Edition. There are a couple of really good examples, including an article about how to learn to be a creator over on Minecraft.net, and a Microsoft Docs which takes you through creating a goblin chef entity, and this is all really worth looking at. It's really interesting to get a bit of professional tips on how the pros do this kind of stuff if you're interested in tackling a bit of modeling yourself, if you've wondered how to use Blockbench and a few other things, and the animation side of things is also really worth looking at. So if you're at all interested in creating that kind of stuff, whether for Bedrock Edition or for other versions of Minecraft, I think this is really worth a look. We'll link that in our show notes as well. That's Kayla Sara over on Twitter.
Starting back at the top of the news with a new Minecraft Legends trailer. Impulse, have you been keeping track of Legends? Are you interested in the game?
So when I saw the show notes, I looked at that was the first I heard about it because I haven't been actually keeping up with the Minecraft Now stuff that's been going on, so I did miss that, but I did take a look at the trailer, and what kind of stuck out to me was more of the, I guess, lore behind what they're building with that game. And so it does Legends looks pretty interesting to me. I especially like the idea of like the overworld mobs uniting together to fight an evil from another dimension. It kind of gives that Lord of the Rings vibe, which I'm into for sure. So I could definitely see myself playing that in the future, maybe just like on a live stream or something. I didn't heavily get into dungeons or anything like that. They're just kind of these kind of side games that are kind of fun to just pick up and just play, just to kind of break things up. And I love the fact that they've kind of, it is Minecraft, so it has these characters that you know and love. So I'm looking forward to that. It definitely did seem interesting. But yeah, that was the first time I saw the trailer. So thanks for telling me about it, because it does look pretty cool.
Yeah, I think Legends is interesting and has the same thing Dungeons had, where it's a totally different gameplay style. It's a very familiar world, and so the selling point is more just like, oh, hey, you know what a creeper is? Those are in this game too. Mm-hmm. But there's clearly like a bit more of an emphasis here on building and creating structures and then destroying structures than there was in Dungeons, where the environments felt very static and you were just there to fight the enemies. The enemies are obviously playing a key role here too, but it's a very different style of gameplay, maybe not something that the average Minecraft player is going to have touched, especially if they are of an age where they grew up playing Minecraft and they haven't really stretched their legs in terms of a variety of games that are out there. So I'm still excited for Legends, and I would like the badger from the trailer in vanilla Minecraft yesterday, please, because I love that badger so much. It's such a cool animation. It's got such like character to it. In the same way that they've given character to stuff like piglins and frogs recently, they seem to really have captured an interesting way of animating some of these, which I know this was a cinematic rather than it being in-game, but I kind of pray that they aren't going to put this badger into a mob vote at Minecraft Live, because I don't want a scenario in which we aren't getting cute badgers. I really, really like the way they designed this one.
I like the badger too. I really like the animation in the cinematics. And what I find so cool about that, and it's a bit of a bittersweet kind of observation, is that everything in the cinematics is still pretty blocky, and they're animated so well. You kind of wish, like, man, I wish that skeletons and creepers moved just a little bit more like that in Minecraft. It's not like they have to function any differently or change the model. It's just that if they had a little bit more bounce, a little bit more overshoot and settle, for anybody that knows their animation terms, it just gives things a little bit more life, and it would feel less 2012, in terms of the way that the animations work in Minecraft right now. But I'm interested to see more gameplay footage. We've seen a couple of trailers with like gameplay snippets, but the gameplay clips are so fast that I can't really put my finger on exactly what's going on. Like, are you controlling mobs of units like Age of Empires? I feel like you're also controlling your hero unit, which has got like the banner I see in a lot of the clips. So I feel like you can run around the battlefield and kind of do what you want to contribute, but then I feel like also you can direct your team of mobs to do your bidding. I think if it's an RTS or similar to an RTS, then it has that kind of vibe. And I apologize, I don't remember who I was watching on YouTube. I watched a lot of Gamescom footage this past week, and somebody was comparing, Minecraft Dungeons to a Diablo clone. They were being complimentary. They didn't mean it as a negative. And then they were also saying, like, it would be nice if we had a Minecraft, like a StarCraft type game, like an RTS. And that's what they're looking at Legends potentially being, which made me question, I wonder if there will be player versus player. Like, if Jonny and I wanted to team up and fight the piglins coming in, could we each play multiplayer together? Or could I be the piglins? And could I go against Jonny and try to keep him from saving the overworld and try to take over with my greed and fire? Like, I like the idea of having an opportunity in a Minecraft game to be the bad guys, like to be the aggressive mobs as opposed to the passive. So that could be kind of fun too.
You end up with a Warcraft kind of dynamic where it's like you can side with the orcs as well as siding with the humans, and that's the thing that interests me. If you're interested in finding some games that are kind of similar in terms of what the gameplay looks like from Minecraft Legends, I've been told Mountain Blade Bannerlord is a pretty similar kind of vibe, although very different graphical style and setting and everything like that. It's a lot less cartoony, it's a little bit more kind of realistic, knights in armor on horseback kind of vibe, but it's more of that action strategy. You're kind of role-playing as a central hero whilst commanding armies at the same time. Seems to have a pretty similar vibe. So maybe worth checking out if you want to see something kind of similar. Let's talk Minecraft Live though, because we are, only a month and a half out now, as far as we've been told, from Minecraft Live returning on October 15th. And Agnes went on to say a couple of other things about, setting people's expectations for Minecraft Live. It seems like they will have a new update to announce, but they're also wary of setting expectations, not wanting to overreach people's expectations, not wanting to crush anybody's dreams, but also wanting to live up to the standards people have come to expect of the Minecraft team, which it was important, I think, for them to acknowledge that.
Impulse, are you looking forward to Minecraft Live?
Yeah, I always do. I was actually kind of surprised. It felt like it's coming quicker than I expected for some reason. It just feels like yesterday the last one happened. Where we were promised fireflies. No, I'm just kidding. but
don't bring those kinds of opinions on our show.
No, I don't want to start any drama in the community, of course. But I can see where Lady Agnes is going with that statement, and that was what they're trying to avoid. It seems like is coming up with concept art and then everybody gets excited about what they see in the art, and then when they finally sit down and try to figure out how do we actually make this work in the game, and all editions of the game as well, which is a new thing they have to worry about. It just didn't come together as they had thought, and so they're trying to avoid those pitfalls. But as far as Minecraft Live goes, I'm always excited to see what they're going to be doing in the next update. I think that's the most exciting thing about it, is just to see what direction they're taking. I necessarily feel like I need details about every block they're going to add or every new mob they're going to add or anything like that. I just want to know like what's their focus going to be. Is it going to be an inventory update finally, or is it going to be a new dimension, or what is it going to be? And that's the piece that's really exciting. I will, however, say I definitely miss like the in-person Minecon style events. Before the pandemic hit, they were planning on making a return. To the point that I was like ready to buy tickets and ready to book an Airbnb and all that stuff. And then the pandemic hit and they had to cancel it. So I've been looking forward to, that coming back, as the pandemic starts to slow down. Obviously, they chose to do another virtual one because I guess they didn't feel like we're there yet, ready to have an in-person event. And I'm just hoping sometime in the next year or two, they will make a return, because I'd love to, kind of view or hang out with my hermits and hang out with some viewers and that kind of stuff, and just kind of meet people in person. Those events really did kind of like help re-inspire me, because getting a chance to like see the people that watch your content face to face and and sign autographs and things like that, it just really like jazzed me as a creator to want to do even more, because now I've put actually human faces to the views, the numbers that you see. So yeah, hoping that returns soon, but definitely still looking forward to a virtual event, and I'm excited to see what the devs got in store for us.
Yeah, I want to second that. I'm definitely looking forward to the return of in-person events. I got to go to one very small kind of thing that they did sort of out of the middle of nowhere in London in 2017, and that one flew under the radar. Not a huge amount of people ended up going, but I met a couple of the devs there, a couple of the Mojang team, and like it was really cool. Like, and I was still relatively small time back then, so it'd be really different going to it now, and maybe even us going there as a podcast, or going there just to hang out with people I've collaborated with virtually but never had the chance to meet in person.
I used to do a fair amount of live events when most of my work was still art and comic based, and because I've shifted now to online content, I don't have the opportunity to do that as much. And plus obviously the different changes in world and travel and everything else the last 3 years. But I'm looking forward to something like that. I think it was set for Miami or somewhere in Florida, Orlando.
I think so.
In
yeah.
2020 was it's a hike for you, Jonny, but it's not terribly far for me. As far as Halifax International goes, I think that's a direct flight to Florida, so it wouldn't be too difficult at all. The difficult part would be getting me on a plane.
Yeah.
It's the only part about travel that does not excite me is the air part of it. As before, you can expect the Spawn Chunks will likely be covering Minecraft Live as we've done in the years past. We'll be summarizing, discussing the announcement live, probably on Twitch. And then the following Monday, we usually do like a recap when we've had a little bit more time to parse the information and get some feedback from our community and like discuss emails and things like that. So you can look forward to that near and around October 15th. For now, let's move on to Chunk Mail. If you'd like to email the show, you can send an email to spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. Keep them short, keep them sweet, and Jonny will read the first one.
Yes, thank you so much to everybody who sent in emails for the show. Obviously, we couldn't cram in too many of them, but a few of them were directed to Impulse as well, so we've tried to cherry pick a few of those that'll make for a fun and interesting discussion. This first one comes in from Big Hippo with the subject of creative designing. Hi Pix, Joel, and Impulse. I know people tend to use build tutorials for various projects in Minecraft, from buildings to redstone farms. In the past, you've talked about how you get inspiration for builds and strategies for designing builds by yourself. However, as a player that likes to do things himself, it is always hard for me to design redstone machines on my own. How do you guys design redstone machines on your own? What are some tips for someone like me that would like to come up with my own designs? Thanks for an awesome podcast. Big Hippo didn't die because he was in creative single-player world trying to make a piston door. I don't know if this was still the case back when we first had you on the show, Impulse, but people tend to sign off their emails with death messages like they've just died in Minecraft, and I feel like it's always a nice change when somebody doesn't die at the end of an email. So that's something we always have to prime our guests for. It's going to get a little macabre mid-show, but it's fine. Okay. So talk us through your process for creating a redstone contraption. You've obviously created, I think, some of the more iconic redstone circuits out there, or popularized them at least, thinking of item filters primarily, but of course there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes beyond that. How do you begin that process, and what have you learned over your years working with redstone?
Yeah, so redstone obviously is how I really got into the game. Just understanding that, I can automate things, and as kind of an engineer at heart, that's what drew me to the game. And so the first thing I did was to, like the email said, copy people, right? Like just go get a tutorial, build it piece by piece. But I didn't just build it and use it. It was the process that I took with every single thing that I was doing, following a tutorial for was, okay, so they did this comparator into an observer and then into this piston. Why? What is that? What does that do? And each thing I could break down to, okay, so this is creating, a 1 tick pulse, or this is actually going to extend the signal. Oh, I see. These comparators, they have this signal. If you watch them, it drains out slowly. So now you can kind of delay a signal dying or whatever. And so it started to identify the pieces that were inside these redstone contraptions that other people were designing, and then understanding okay, so when I have my own problem I want to solve, I start to break it down into the parts. Okay, I need to have this piston move that, and then this over here happens, and then you break down the flow. And one by one started to kind of take those components that I had learned about from other people's contraptions and see how I could fit them in, right? And then kind of go about it to where, okay, I got one piece, let me just test that one piece. I put it, even if I have to put a lever on it and manually do it, and then go to the next piece and put a lever on it and manually do it to see if they work before I connect everything together. I just kind of build things in pieces. So yeah, I guess just leveraging, kind of the brain power that exists out there, right? Because there's a lot of really, really smart people out there, and way smarter than I'll ever be. So it's kind of nice to take things that they've figured out and just really try to understand those individual components. And then once you kind of have it's like a tool belt, right? You've got all these tools all in your tool belt. And when you go to build something, okay, now I need my screwdriver, now I need my hammer, but in redstone components, we're talking pulse limiters and length and, extenders and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I just break down the problem that I'm trying to solve and then figure out what pieces I need to put in play and connected to make it work.
Yeah, I think a lot of it can be learned from existing tutorials in the first place. It's always difficult seeing that blank canvas problem where you're in a creative flat world, you're placing down your first repeater, and then your brain just goes blank, and you're like, wait, what am I doing here exactly? What am I trying to accomplish? And I think it's most important to start by identifying your end goal. What do you actually want this circuit to do? Because I used to get stuck figuring out redstone because I knew I wanted to use it. I'd seen redstone, it looked cool, but I didn't know what I wanted to use it for. And it only really started to click for me when I focused on stuff like resource farms, a lot of which have very little actual redstone in them if you're talking about stuff that just exploits mob spawning mechanics and gets them all to die easily. They have a pretty clear end result, and a lot of the redstone circuitry can be pretty small. So starting with stuff like that, where you have a very clear benefit to the player in survival and that kind of stuff, I think really works as a gateway to doing more complex redstone stuff. And circuits which aren't farms can still be fairly small and have a pretty clear end result. Like your item filters, I've been building block swappers around all of my storage so that they just pull one block out of the way and push another block into place so that I can see what's stored in each chest and then have that retract so it doesn't distract from the overall aesthetic of a build. Those are pretty easy to understand. They are small enough that you can kind of muddle through them in creative. And if worst comes to worst, you can look up what somebody else has done and then just try and figure out why it does what it does. And the thing to remember is that larger redstone systems, when you're looking at like the stuff that Doc M's been building on Hermitcraft this week, the sort of like wild things that just end up with tree farm output. You know, he's built this giant redstone machine just so it can output wood logs reliably. Like, they're all made up of smaller components, and those are like pieces on a circuit board. They all chain together for the desired effect, but each thing is like a resistor or a capacitor or a switch or something like that. And so starting small, like you said, understanding simple redstone circuits and behavior, then building up to larger contraptions is an approach that works. You start to build that foundation of knowledge that means you can design your own stuff a lot easier later on.
I think some of the things that, unfortunately, for beginners get a lot of spotlight on places like YouTube are the big machines, you know, the Doc M, the Mumbo Jumbo, you know, triple, quadruple piston door of doom or whatever, you know, is going on. And those can be quite intimidating. You can find tutorials out there. I think Logical Geek Boy has one where they've not really made a redstone build. They're just going over the various components and breaking down what they do, what are their basic uses, what are their most common uses. That really helped me because toughing it out in Minecraft without looking at anything, it's really frustrating because Minecraft really doesn't give you a whole lot in terms of in-game knowledge as to what, you know, the components do. I guess your next best friend would be the wiki. But again, as we've said many times in the show, we happen to be visual redstone learners, not, I can't read a paragraph about a redstone circuit and understand how to build it and go and do it myself. My education has come more from adapting these big farms. You know, when I look for Wither Skeleton Farm or I look for Cactus Farm, I ultimately find this gargantuan thing on YouTube by someone like El Mango. And I think like, well, that's cool. I like the mechanic. I think I understand how it works, but my gosh, do I not need 40,000 cactus an hour, you know, on the server for just me. So I found a good part of my education was taking something that was like that was massive, and learning how it worked so I could then make my own at a much smaller scale, but still have the efficient mechanic. So I knew how it would work, but then I could design it as something smaller. Or sometimes I would just copy the build as it was because maybe the output was fine, but I need to explode it to a larger footprint or move things around because I wanted to make the redstone look pretty. I wanted to add like pillars and trapdoors and decorative stuff around it and lights. And I find that decorating my redstone has helped me really understand what the components are doing, because so often online you'll find people trying to make everything in a redstone build as compact as possible, and then you're looking at like 6 observers, a couple of note blocks, and a hopper and a hopper minecart, and you're going like, everything is in like a 2x3 space, and I have no idea what any of it does. But if you can kind of space it out sometimes when you're trying to make it look nice, I find that it inherently allows you to understand, as Impulse was saying, like what things are doing and how they're actually interacting with one another.
I think we covered that pretty comprehensively. Good job, team. Cool. Let's move on to our second email.
Next email comes in from Raktos42, being a good builder. Hi, Jonny, Joel, and Impulse. First-time writer, long-time listener, and avid fan of the show. I enjoy hearing about the Citadel and the long-term projects. I am a working adult as well, with little time to play, so I try cramming a lot of Minecraft things into a single weekend. I often feel defeated when I scroll through YouTube or Twitter and see builders in impossible creative leagues I feel I will never reach. How do you all feel comfortable with your builds and not compare your abilities with other creators? Sincerely, Rakdos42, who became paralyzed with indecision on a block palette and signed off. I feel called out by the block palette comment. I haven't signed off, but I have definitely been just like self-conscious on Twitch trying to figure out the right blocks for something, feeling like these people have watched me replace these blocks like 7 times. And they're just like, what are you doing? I definitely, that hit home, I think, Rakdos, that hit home. Impulse, I know that imposter syndrome was something that came up on the Imp and Skizz podcast lately. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to toss this to you in terms of, you know, the circles that you travel in the YouTube sphere and the Minecraft sphere. Have you ever experienced this?
Oh, yeah. Still do. Rakdos, I hate to say it, it may never go away completely. But yeah, imposter syndrome is definitely something I experience from time to time, and it's that comparison thing, right? I like this quote that I didn't know about until Mumbo said it, but comparison is the thief of joy, right? So you start to look around and you're like, oh my gosh, like even the stuff that I see Pixel Riffs, we were just talking about your gate and everything. I'm like, wow, that's super good. I don't think I could do that. You get that whenever you're comparing yourself to others. You're going to feel a little inadequate at times and have that imposter syndrome. But I can tell you that there are ways to improve that and to make sure that it doesn't happen as often, or you don't feel as unequal to somebody else. Is that just just keep building. That's what you have to do. Like a repetition, and kind of taking inspiration from those things that you see. They mentioned like, oh, go to Twitter, they see these things and it's like all these impossible feats, but it doesn't have to be impossible, right? You can just take inspiration from these things you see and then just try it yourself and kind of build your own style with that and just take inspiration. And so what I've done, and I still don't consider myself a good builder, and my audience gets mad at me when I say that, but is I just kind of like created my own style. Like I know these make me feel good, and a lot of times it's symmetrical, which people don't like, but I like symmetry. I like a modern. Typically, I like building modern. I'm more comfortable with that. This season, I did try to push myself into building something not modern, like the Dwarven Keep has definitely got a different vibe to it than my typical, season, what was it, 7? I had that like modern looking pyramid type base, that's where my comfort zone is. So I've been trying to push myself outside my comfort zone, but it just takes repetition, right? Like just place blocks and see what feels good and do that over and over again until you kind of create your own style that you feel comfortable with. And then try to avoid that comparison. I think that's my best advice, is because I don't think I'm ever going to be as good as Pearl or B-Dubs, and that's fine. Like that's fine. I have my own style, and they have theirs, and I've gotten better. If you're gonna do comparison, compare yourself to yourself, right? I compare my builds that I do today to my builds that I did 5 years ago, and guess what? I've gotten better. I can say that confidently, and that takes away some of the imposter syndrome vibes that happen when you compare yourself to others. So that's my advice, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Focus on personal growth rather than how much everybody else is going to be growing around you, because there are going to be people who, again, like weren't as good builders back when you started, but then like as the years go on and you're comparing yourself to the same people, you might find that they've really kind of pulled ahead. I think one of the key things to remember is that most of the content you're seeing shared online is going to be from people who have more time to play Minecraft than you, especially if you're looking at full-time YouTubers. Like, they're putting 8 hours a day into Minecraft a lot of the time, possibly even more. It's a job, and like any hobbyist, you probably wouldn't expect to keep up with the professionals. Like, I enjoy cycling. I'm not about to race anybody, I'm not going to go and challenge somebody to a race. So I think that's the most important thing, is to look inward a little bit and try and focus on your own development. I was making YouTube videos for 3 or 4 years, and that was really like, hand in hand with me playing Minecraft. And it was 3 or 4 years before I thought, oh, hey, I'm a somewhat competent builder now. Like, I've realized that building is really an aspect of the game that I like to focus on. And I think part of that is still acknowledging that there is room to grow. You're not stopping where you are right now. You're going to keep improving if you keep doing it. That said, like, part of watching other builders is learning technique, and it's a really valuable way of doing it. You can, stumble upon that stuff on your own, or you can kind of play around with the express purpose of trying to find the right combinations of blocks, or like things that you've never seen used before as like a small detail, but you're going to maybe learn that faster if you treat going to YouTube and looking at exciting builds and stuff almost like a class. You're there to learn. You're not there to surpass your teacher right away, at least. So take small lessons from them where you can. Like, try and find that one part about that build that you just like leaps out at you as something you've never seen anybody do before, and then think how you can use that yourself. And part of, now that I'm doing YouTube stuff full time, like part of that as a full-time job is doing research, whether that's from other Minecraft builders. You look into real-life building techniques if you think that will help for the stuff that you're recreating in the game, or maybe just scroll Google image searches looking for cool architecture. But you can find that research really focuses your efforts and gives you one thing to really work towards, instead of treating it like an exercise in looking at what everybody else is doing, following trends, and then realizing that either that's not the kind of thing that you want to build, or it feels like it's above your pay grade right now. You will grow, you will learn from that, and I think giving yourself something to focus on in the meantime is really important.
I like the advice of breaking down those really cool inspirational builds that you might see on Twitter or YouTube into their individual parts, because once you realize that that cool dormer or that cool pillar is just like fence posts and fence gates and an upside down stair, you're like, wait a minute, this looks cool because there's 200 of these, but if I look at it as an individual thing, that's something I could do. And I know that we've talked a lot about like personal style and building up those kind of like things that are in your back pocket. And my experience comes from being an artist for 20 years, where, you know, when you first start out, you're emulating people that you look up to. And eventually, when you put in the time, you just kind of develop your own style. There's a famous quote out there that is, you know, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And the idea behind that is that, you know, you'd see a bunch of art that you like. For me, let's say it's cartoons and comic strips like Calvin and Hobbes, Zits, maybe some Disney animation here and there. And I liked all of it. And I ultimately kind of took like the way that the 9 old men at Disney drew hands and folded that into my comic work. And then I liked the imagination and the brushwork in Calvin and Hobbes. So I borrowed that and brought that into my work. And you can do the same thing with Minecraft. You know, you can take little bits that you like. And remember that everyone that is doing these things, you know, people like Pearlescent Moon that Impulse mentioned, or Whip, who's on Empires with Pixel Riffs, they have inspiration too, right? They're not just pulling this stuff out of thin air. Whip has got a fantastic Pinterest board that not only has some Minecraft reference, but also has illustration reference and photographic reference and architectural reference and things that he uses to interpret, you know, that shape or that building into Minecraft. And I think that that's helpful for a lot of people. I mean, me as an artist, I can sometimes take for granted going into Minecraft, visualizing something. I can see it nearly finished in my head and I can just go and do it. And there's not a lot of Minecraft people that or players that can do that. They need a little bit more instruction, or they need to have a more of a solid plan, or have a picture next to them and say like, okay, I need to recreate this. I need to start somewhere. But as you do that, as you put in the time, you will start to pocket these little things, like now you know how to do a chimney, now you know how to do a specific kind of pointy roof, or now you know how to do a certain type of window, or whatever it is that you're building that you like. You know, maybe you're building statues or more organic shapes, whatever it is that you're doing. And that will just build up over time. I remember it happened when I was cartooning. Like all of a sudden I would have hand positions I would know by heart. I wouldn't have to look up reference. I would be able to draw all kinds of household objects that I would have to previously look up, but like coffee cups and French presses and kettles, like I knew how to draw all of it because I'd just done it over and over again when I was drawing a comic strip. And so I'd say just be consistent with it. It sounds like you're liking to play Minecraft every weekend. You know, you're in there, you're cramming in some work. Don't feel too pressured, you know, like take your time with it, enjoy it. And I think that once you start to put in the time, you'll discover that, you know, comparing your work now to your work then, you'll end up feeling much better about the whole imposter syndrome thing.
Good luck out there, folks. And now we get to turn to our main discussion for the week, which is, of course, the return of impulseSV. Last time we saw Impulse, Hermitcraft was in Season 6. Content creation was still a part-time, I won't say hobby, it was a part-time job for you. Bees didn't exist in the game yet. We've come a long way, is what I'm saying. Wow. So we had a bunch of questions, a few submitted via email, a few of our own. We'll probably try and mix it up between the Hermitcraft related stuff and stuff related to your ongoing journey as a content creator. But let's start with another question from email, because Joel, I know you've got a couple of those written down.
So recently, you've moved into doing full-time content creation, and Enki, a landscape artist member of our community, wanted to know at what point you realized you wanted to do full-time content creation, and how receptive were your friends and family to this change?
Yeah, that's an easy one. So I was working a full-time job at a Fortune 500 company and doing exactly what I went to school for, and I actually quite enjoyed what I was doing in my 8 to 5 Monday through Friday job. And then the whole YouTube thing was kind of a side hobby / side hustle at some point. It started making a little bit of money, but it still was just something I did on the side. And I think I got to a certain point to where that job that I've been working for 15 plus years and was enjoying, I realized I actually enjoyed creating content more than that. Like when that finally, when it was like, okay, do I do this work or do I make some content? And if I had the choice, I would choose content over doing my day job. And I was like, oh, okay, so I think I would rather be doing that. Now I should look at what point can I afford to just do that. And being a content creator is scary, because there's this whole concept of this could all go away overnight. 15 minutes of fame is a scary thought. And so I had to kind of think ahead and think, okay, so if I am going to make sure that I can still support my family and all that, I need to make sure that I'm in a good enough place that it'll be okay. And so I told myself, before I ever pull the trigger, if you will, of going full-time content creation, I want to make sure that I have enough money saved up that if things did just Thanos snap on me and I'm not a content creator tomorrow, that I could have enough buffer financially to basically support my family for at least a year before I would have to seriously think about what's my next step in life. So that was it. Financially, I made sure that I had that savings. And then as far as that went, it's, telling my family, hey, this is something I really want to do. They were super supportive, but, here in America, health insurance is a huge thing, and so to work for a great company like I work for, I realize I'm going to have to go from their insurance to private insurance where I have 3 kids and a wife and all that. That part was definitely scary, and I've been lucky so far because I haven't had to deal with that just yet. I made a kind of a deal with my company that I've been working with forever to still be kind of a side contractor for now, and I haven't lost my benefits because of that. So that is something I will be dealing with in the future, but I think that was the only real thing that at least my wife was really hesitant on. What about health insurance? We have such good health insurance. You're going to lose that, and we'll have to figure that out. But yeah, they were really supportive. They knew this was something that I wanted to do. They could see that I was happier when I was creating content versus working the other job. And once that shift happened, they knew this was something that I needed to pursue, and they were behind me 100%.
Nice. So how long have you actually been full-time? Because I think I remember the announcement. Was it sometime in Hermitcraft Season 8, or was it just before that?
It was towards the end of Season 8 that I made the announcement. So I kind of did a test run of being a full-time content creator. So the water is a little muddy, but I had what they call a sabbatical due at my job. So the really cool feature or benefit of this company I work for is every 7 years, they give you 2 months off. And that's just to kind of recharge your batteries. Well, I'd been there for 15 years, so I was due for my second one. And I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this 2 months, and instead of going on cruises and vacations with my family, which I'm sure they didn't appreciate that piece, but I'm going to see what life is like as a full-time content creator. Every day I'm going to get up, I'm going to create content. That 8 to 5, space that I usually work that job, I'm instead going to make videos or stream on Twitch or whatever. And it was during those 2 months that I could really see the advantages of putting in the full time. I could see, all the things that helped me would stay afloat as a full timer. Sub counts on Twitch, views on YouTube, and all that. They all just went up. More content going out means more views, means more money. And so I was like, oh, okay. So if I was to do this full time, I could probably support my family and we'd be okay. I can keep a roof over their head and food on the table. And so I went back to work for a few months after my sabbatical was over. And, that really kind of nailed it and put the nail in the coffin for me, because I realized I wasn't happy doing that work anymore. And so I just told my boss, I was like, look, here's the deal. And I broke it down to my boss. I actually told my boss what I do, which was scary because nobody at my company knew that I was doing this. So I told my boss, I was like, look, I'm a content creator. I have this many subscribers and I'm getting, and I do all this stuff. And he was just blown away. And I was like, I need to pursue this passion. And he was with me. And he's like, I don't want to lose you. And so we kind of held on to this, like, we'll keep you around in case, one day a week, maybe if we need you type thing. And then that gives you the ability to keep the benefits. And so it was like perfect. So it was, long story short, it was February. So 6 months ago and change was when I actually pulled the trigger and went for full-time content creation.
Nice. Yeah. Well, long may it continue as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's
Thanks.
great that your employer had your back as well. Like, it's not just that your friends and family are supportive of it, but to have an employer that you've got such a good relationship with that you can go to them and say, I've actually been a Minecraft YouTuber basically this whole time, and now I want to take that to the next level. And it speaks to what you were saying in episode 2 of your podcast with Skizz, where you were just saying, like, you just went after it. Like, this was something that you knew was going to be, it was a side hustle for a while. It was a place that you were happy, and like, it was gonna make you as much money as your job if you were able to like put your heart and soul into it. Like, you go after that stuff. And I made the switch to doing stuff full time a while back, but back then I wasn't getting paid a huge amount for doing, like, I was effectively doing a part-time job. I was doing remote work, so I was getting more from YouTube and Twitch streaming and stuff than I was from my job then anyway. And then that escalated when Survival Guide took off to a point where I was like, the other job feels like pocket change now because it's only a part-time income, and that's a weird situation to be in. But I kind of came at it from the opposite angle of like, I'm still in an unstable place, and a YouTube career weirdly feels like the most stable option for me at this point. But then, I don't have an entire family to support. It's just me and my partner, so I can understand it being a difficult decision, and especially with the health insurance thing. But yeah, how great that your employer was like, yes, we're going to support you through this. We'll give you a back door into work if it doesn't work out for you. And it seems to have gone from strength to strength for you since. So that's really great to see.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was grateful for that for sure.
We've got another question from our chunk mail from Josie Black, more on the gameplay side of things. Now that you're a full-time content creator, what is the thing in your day, in the day-to-day life, that you get inspiration from for new content on your Minecraft journey?
I don't know if there's a specific thing, but I can tell you one of the downsides of being a content creator is it like never shuts off. So even when it's like the end of the day, I'm just chilling on the couch with my wife watching whatever is on TV because you just want to kind of veg out and relax. Like, she'll turn on like some sort of game show or something, and immediately my brain's starting to go, how could I turn this game show into something cool in Minecraft? And it's like, so it never shuts off. Or even like she'll turn on a movie or something, and I just look at the set of the movie and I'm like, man, that would be cool as a base or something. You start to just like pull things from everywhere because your brain just never shuts down as a content creator. So I mean, even like inspiration for my Dwarven stuff came from a movie, right? Lord of the Rings, which we can talk about later. But yeah, inspiration's everywhere, and being a content creator never stops. So I pull from whatever, whenever, however, all the time.
Dude, we can talk about Lord of the Rings now because when I was watching the trailer for Rings of Power, and that's starting really soon, like that's coming out basically the first week of September, I think.
Oh,
right?
I'm excited for that one.
I think it's the 19th, I think, Johnny.
Oh, is it? Okay, I thought it was earlier than that. I think they're doing like advanced screenings of a couple of episodes at specific locations or something. I forget where I read it, but like I saw the trailer for that, and my brain was first of all instantly like nerd Tolkien brain firing on all cylinders, going, "Oh, this looks really cool!" And like they've really nailed it with the aesthetic of some of these shots, and it looks so epic. But then they start showing you scenery and massive cities around like a harbor and everything, and then elf buildings, and I'm like, man, this is a lot of really cool production design that makes for some very good Minecraft inspiration. So how hyped are you for that show? And talk to us about the Tolkien inspiration going into Hermitcraft season 9.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that because I got into Lord of the Rings, a while back. I just watched it, right, and just kind of saw the movies, and it was cool. But it really struck me when I was preparing for a live stream that I was going to be doing for charity last year. I'd kind of rewatched the movies, and it was at that point in time where I was like, there's some stuff in here that if I was to build that in Minecraft, it would be really cool. And so I pulled some inspiration from that, and it ended up with me this season being a dwarf and building inside of a mountain, and kind of getting that whole vibe that was inspired by Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I definitely dove headfirst into that. So yeah, I'm excited about the new series coming out.
Do you think are you going to hang on for that show and see if there's any dwarven stuff that you can keep taking inspiration from?
I'm going to be stealing everything I can. Yes.
Yeah,
a great artist, would you say, steals? Yeah, that's me.
Feasting halls and stuff. Like, there's also another video game coming out pretty soon, or maybe it's like next year, but they're starting to roll out trailers for it, which is all set after the events of Lord of the Rings, basically like the final war against Sauron or whatever, and it's the dwarves going back to reclaim Moria. Like, they go back and they start to like kick the goblins out of Khazad-dûm and rebuild the dwarf empire from there. And I follow a guy who's like a Tolkien scholar, and he's consulting on this game and keeps tweeting really excited stuff about it. And it's going to be more of like a Valheim kind of style game is probably the closest thing I can compare it to. So I'm keeping my eye on that as well for, like, again, aesthetics beyond anything else, but also, yeah, like looks like some fun gameplay thrown in there as well.
That's super cool. Yeah, it sounds like something I'd definitely be able to take some inspiration from. And I always look forward to that.
I know on Hermitcraft this season, there's a fair amount of special items like your dwarven axe and the beard that you have on your character for the skin. I think there's elven cookies. All of that stuff is made possible with custom mods on Hermitcraft. And I'm wondering, like, as far as, using that stuff to inspire, viewers and to inspire yourselves, is there a lot of back and forth behind the scenes on Hermitcraft as to what is like too far versus like keeping things as close to vanilla? Because it's technically kind of billed as like a vanilla-esque or a vanilla plus Minecraft experience for Hermitcraft, right?
Right. Yeah, we've always wanted to try to stick as close to vanilla as possible, just because when you deviate, it kind of alienates your viewers as well, because they're going, how come I don't have this stuff? And when I fire up Minecraft, that doesn't exist. There's no elven cookies. What the heck is going on here? And they're confused, right? So we do try to stick to vanilla, but at the same time, we've been doing this for a long time, like season 9, and we like to be able to shake things up a little bit to help us better create, some lore and some storylines and things like that. And giving us a little bit of flexibility in this space has helped, as far as, me turning into a dwarf. I thought, what, if I was actually had like a full blown beard and looked like a dwarf, like that would be much cooler, and I think I just mentioned it in passing in one of my episodes, is like, I wish I had a cool battle axe to go with and then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I can actually model that. I can get that modeled, and, that as far as like, okay, so then how does that get into discussion with hermits about like what's too far? That came up. It definitely came up. Like the first model of my battle axe was like very, very detailed, to the point to where it didn't look Minecrafty at all. And I didn't really think much of it. I don't see things from the standpoint of like, oh, that's not vanilla. It's going to alienate the viewers. I didn't feel that way. But then when I posted it in like the Hermitcraft Discord, like, hey, here's the battle axe I'm wanting to get added, there was a little bit of like, that's like not blocky enough, and I didn't quite understand, that doesn't feel Minecraft vanilla enough. And so we did go back and forth with a couple of revisions before like all the hermits were like, okay, yeah, okay, that it has got some detail like you wanted, but it's also still like within the realm of what we're looking for. And we had to kind of establish like what that meant. We don't have like black and white rules as far as creating textures, but now we kind of have like a, hey, if you're thinking about doing a model, post it here, and we'll all kind of take a look and see if it feels okay. So we did have to kind of come up with a system to where we would at least have that kind of check ourselves moment before we just threw stuff in, because yeah, we don't want to alienate our viewers any more than we already have by being vanilla plus, right? But also we got to walk that line of like, okay, we still want to add this cool stuff that can create better storylines and things like that. So yeah, we're still learning. Like this whole custom texture thing is something that we started doing like season 8, and then we're just trying to find our way with it still, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah, let's talk a little about Season 8, because it was a much shorter season. We're kind of going back through time, and sooner or later we'll connect with where you were at in episode 60. But with Hermitcraft Season 8, it was much shorter. It was really ambitious in terms of the scale of projects everybody was working on, to the point where I think a lot of people took a break after Season 8 before Season 9 started, because people were getting burnt out. But there was a bigger focus on like larger thematic builds and storytelling, and you were kind of lighter on the storytelling side, but it was all focused around the Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory kind of vibe. So like, how did that go? What did you learn from the experience, aside from the kind of custom item stuff? Like, what did you learn about yourself as a builder, and how you wanted to focus your content from there?
Well, I learned that I'm really, really good at biting off more than I can chew.
Oh yeah.
So when we decided that we were going to do a shorter season just to try to fit in between the Minecraft updates and have the seasons flow with the new update that was coming out, we knew we were going to do a shorter season, but I had already kind of decided like, I want to do this Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory. It's something that I had in my mind for a while. There was like a anniversary coming up for the movie or whatever, and I just felt like the time was right. And I was like, okay, so we're looking at maybe 8 months of this season. I think I can do it. I think I can go for it. I'm taking these couple months of being full time and all this stuff, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I did like the idea of having some lore behind the build, and I figured, okay, this is a shorter season. We are experimenting in some aspects of the way that we're doing this season and in our content. So I'm going to try this lore thing a little bit, because I know it's popular, especially like Dream SMP, they were really popular with their lore, and it obviously did well for them. So I kind of wanted to see how that would play into some Hermitcraft, and Scar had been really successful with giving putting lore behind his builds, but he did it in a specific way that I think made more sense than what I had tried to do. But I figured, experimental season, let's go for it. So, pretending that Willy Wonka had come to me and said I need to rebuild the factory, and that he was going to keep an eye on me and all this stuff. And, I was going to recreate these iDimpy bars. And that was another thing. When I first introduced the iDimpy bar, the texture on that one was a little too detailed, and we had to backtrack it a little bit. So again, another learning with this texture stuff. But I did start to get into some role play, and to the point to where I made another discovery. I'm a terrible actor.
Dude, same. I feel you. Yes. Finally, terrible actors recognize yourselves.
Yeah,
Look inward.
So it was good learning for me. I tried it, I mean, you gotta take some shots, right? You gotta swing for the fences sometimes, and then you're not always gonna hit a home run. And I felt like some of that stuff fell a little flat, fell a little short, and I learned, and some of it was cringy and all that. And that's fine, because at the end of the day, that's what the season was for us to try something new and learn from it. And, people may say, season 8 wasn't great or whatever, but for us, it really was, because we learned so much about ourselves and about how we want to play this game moving forward. And we took that into season 9. So it was a great experience. I'm grateful for season 8, even though it was short, even though I didn't finish the inside of the factory, even though I had some cringe moments. I would never take that back, because it's made me better moving forward.
Yeah, and what you've landed on is some lore that you can feel comfortable with. You're like, I'm a dwarf and I'm building this stuff underground, and I've got the beard and I've got the battle axe, but I don't have to like turn up to somebody and be like, why are you so tall? Like, right. you can kind of draw a line at a certain point, and everybody knows you're still Impulse, and they don't have to like act a certain way around you, which that kind of social contract is like really weird when you're getting into a role play heavy situation on a server when you're not really a role player.
Right.
So that's always a lot of fun. But one of the other things you're doing on Hermitcraft 9 right now is you're creating this big old industrial district, and that's something you've obviously done in previous seasons as well. I think the last season you really went like ham for that stuff was season 7, because you set out to build this giant redstone lamp wall, and every lamp represented a farm, and you were like, we're going to farm every resource it's possible to farm in this version of Minecraft. Were there any of those that you just put off because they're a pain in the butt, and have you started to tackle any of those on season 9 yet, or are you still like putting off any of them?
That was my, what I call it, the Phineas board, where it was kind of like, if you've seen what Grian's doing recently, is he's got this content generator thing going on, so where you can go and press a button and it'll tell you what to do. And I was trying to capture that with this Phineas board, where I could just go to it, press the button, and it's like, today you're going to build a carrot farm. And I'm like, okay, cool. I like, farming. It's always like my comfort zone in Minecraft. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to, anytime I'm like stuck, because it happens, stuck, what do I do next? I can just have this thing decide for me. So I put up this board. There was 55 different farms I came up with. And that's not all the farms in Minecraft. There's even more. But those are the ones that I put on there. And I think after the season was done, I got 33 of them done. So roughly about 60% or so.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. But, I'm a completionist, so I'm always kind of sad when I don't finish something like the inside of my factory. But, there were some things that I looked at on the board, and I'm like, I pressed the button, and I'm like, please don't be a beetroot farm, because why? why did I put that on? I don't need beetroots. Why is that on the board? And then like other things, and late in the season, do I really need a cobblestone generator? Like, no, probably not, or other foods like mutton and potatoes. At that point, I'm like, I don't need that stuff. So yeah, there was definitely some things that I was like not looking forward to had it come up. And I was okay with not getting to the point that I ever did those. This season, I have, making my own choices as far as what farms I do. I don't have a board dictating what I'm going to do. And I don't think I'll get to every single one. One thing I am looking at is like, okay, if I built the farm last season, do I really want to build it again this season? Or if Tango has already built this, this piglin bartering system, do I really need to go build a piglin bartering system or gold farm to supply it? Probably not. Him and I work together really well, and we share our resources with each other. And some farms we've already done together. So, I probably won't get to every single farm, but I do definitely want to fill that place out. I have this idea with the new industrial district that I'm working on, that it's going to be really reminiscent to what Ren did in season 5 with his plastic.
With like the plastic island?
Yeah, where it basically looked like a motherboard at the end of it. I'm really hoping that like when I'm all said and done, all my farms will kind of look like a motherboard, in the fact that they each have their individual little chips or whatever, and then kind of interconnected circuitry inside of it, to like, and that's the flow of the items from one farm to another, like from a bamboo farm to a super smelter, like that's your circuit, and so from a bird's eye view, I'm hoping it'll end up kind of looking like a motherboard. But a lot of work to get there, but we don't plan on having a short season again. So I keep tackling these huge projects and just hoping that time won't run out before everybody decides it's time for season 10,
Yeah, long live Hermitcraft season 9.
Yeah, exactly.
We've come full circle. So we've talked about all of the Hermitcraft stuff. We've kind of caught up in like a potted history of what's happened to you on Hermitcraft since then. But you're expanding into places beyond that, and you'd already had like some of this stuff on the go when we last talked to you. But you've done your solo hardcore series. You're continuing Naked and Scared and other Minecraft series with Skizz. Now the podcast. Does it feel like you always wanted to be defined from outside of Hermitcraft? Like, do you feel like Hermitcraft is just like one factor of things, or do you still see it as like the flagship, like Hermitcraft is what I do and the other stuff is kind of a side gig?
Yeah, currently Hermitcraft still does definitely feel like the staple of my channel and what I do. If I think about how much time I spend every week, Hermitcraft definitely takes up the most time and is also the most lucrative thing for me as a content creator. But I do like the idea of having all these other projects that I'm doing. It keeps me fresh, it keeps me, if all I did was Hermitcraft, and I spent 40 to 50 hours a week just doing Hermitcraft, sure, I could get more content out. I could make even more impressive builds in Hermitcraft than I do today. But chances are I would get bored and burn out. and then what, so having all these other projects that I do, especially with my buddy Skizzleman, we just have so much fun together, and it doesn't ever feel like work, not that even Hermitcraft does, but it's just so easy to just like get on a stream and hang out with my buddy Skizz, and whatever happens. Same thing with Naked and Scared. That's why we've done 25 seasons, is because we just have so much fun just hanging out and doing this stuff. It keeps me fresh, it just gives me something else to do. And I really like that, and I do end up juggling too much and get overwhelmed at times, and then realize it and have to kind of pull back on a couple series here and there. But I like the idea of also having something outside of Hermitcraft that just keeps me interested. And the podcast is not even Minecraft, which is very interesting. The thing with the podcast I like is the idea that people hopefully will get a genuine interest in me and Skizz, like the creators behind this other content, and be as interested in us and who we are as they are like what we do in Minecraft. Like that's the goal there, and I hope it happens, because one, just personally for my ego, but two, it hopefully would open some doors that if someday we did have to stray away from Minecraft, God forbid. Hopefully, Minecraft is still popular 20 years from now. But if it ever did shift in that, then we would still be poised to be relevant, because people do actually invest in us, the creators, versus just what blocks we place.
Yeah, makes sense not to put all of your eggs in one basket, but also, to allow yourself to stay refreshed creatively, I think is a really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really smart, as we'll say, a brand, with impulseSV, to diversify and have that other kind of content that isn't related to Minecraft. And I know that you stream other games from time to time too. Like you play, what's the little spaceship one? I'm drawing a blank.
Among Us.
Among Us, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen you guys have great amounts of fun with that. And that game, it's less about the gameplay and more about the people and the personalities that are all on mic and trying to stab one another in the back or all that kind of stuff. And I think it's important that anybody that's coming up, that's looking at content creation as a potential career path, that they see their favorite content creators diversifying and not putting, as Jonny said, all their eggs in the Minecraft basket. They play other games, they do other things, they do a podcast, they create other content, and they shift the focus from follow me because you like this game to follow me because you like me.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah. But aside from that is fun, right? Like we still want this to be fun. I think that plays a huge part of content creation. If you're not having fun, then why are you doing it, right? Or why would people want to watch if you're not enjoying what you're doing? And so by doing these other things, it keeps me, like I said, fresh. But really, the word is fun. Everything still becomes fun for me, and I don't get drained on just doing the same thing over and over again.
And I think that's the takeaway people should take from this episode, is that it's all still fun for Impulse, and we hope it stays fun for a lot longer. That's where we're going to have to leave it, though, because we are close to running out of time here for this episode of The Spawn Chunks. But Impulse, thank you so much for joining us on this week's show. Take a moment to tell the folks listening to this episode where they can find more of you and what you do.
Yeah, so I mentioned I juggle a lot of plates. I also juggle a lot of channels. So I have my main channel, obviously, on YouTube is just impulseSV. You can catch me there. You can catch Hermitcraft there, and my solo hardcore gets there as well. I have a second channel where I post all my Twitch live stream replays. So if you like the kind of longer style content, I usually stream about 5 times a week, about 3 hours a pop. So you can find all those replays on my second channel, impulseSV2, or if you want to catch me live over on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/impulseSV. I do a lot of Hermitcraft streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time is when those start. Solos out on the Wednesdays now. And also do some afternoon streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have my stream with Skizzleman on Tuesdays, and with Skizzleman and other friends, Tango and Joker, we call ourselves the Jits Crew. On Thursdays, we do fun various games like Phasmophobia and some other things, puzzler games and things like that. And Among Us from time to time on Friday nights on Twitch. So a lot of good stuff happening on Twitch, a lot of live streams, and those, like I said, you catch replays on the second channel. And then my third channel with my buddy Skizzleman is Imp and Skizz on YouTube, and that's where our Skyblock Evolution series is going. and our newly formed podcast. If you're interested in doing a visual podcast, you can catch it there on YouTube, or the audio, of course, is on all your major podcast platforms that you would expect. Just search for Imp and Skizz and you'll find us. And we've got 3 really fun podcasts. I hope you guys check them out and enjoy them. But yeah, that's all the plugs. I mean, I'm on most social media platforms if you look for me, but those are the main ones.
Oh, I think that's probably the most any of our guests have ever been doing, and it sounds like you're having a great time doing it.
I am.
You can find more information about our show and links to some of the stuff we talked about today, including all of Impulse's links, if we can fit them all in, over at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you're getting some value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? You can visit patreon.com/thespawnchunks to join our community, where pledging at any level gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat. You can listen to the show live when we are recording just me and Joel. We typically do guest episodes separately for guest comfort and so forth, but we also have a bunch of other stuff coming up for patrons. We had our monthly Minecraft audio hangout this weekend, where our patrons get to share screenshots of what they've been working on in Minecraft, and Joel and I talk about trends in building in the Minecraft community. It's always a fantastic time. We're currently at 345 patrons. There's always room for more. Special thanks go out to our content engineers, Hunter555, Jumbo Sale, and Yitz for your support on this episode.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at The Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram. Personal recommendations are by far the best way to share the podcast. Just poke a friend in the arm, from a safe distance, of course, and let them know where they can find The Spawn Chunks. We are on every podcast platform. Just search for us by name. You can email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. The RSS feed is linked on the spawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page. That's where you can listen to the render distance, the extended version of the podcast with more impulse.
My name is Jonny, but online I go by PixelRiffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/PixelRiffs, where I try to make sense of this bizarre and wonderful game in Season 2 of both the Minecraft Survival Guide and Empire's SMP. I also stream 3 days a week on Twitch, where I do behind-the-scenes work for my YouTube series, and I'm the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. Aside from that, I'm at PixelRiffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything that I'm doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio, is at joelduggan.com. The Citadel Cafe is my other podcast about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. That's at thecitadelcafe.com. Talked a lot about Halo Infinite and Guild Wars 2 this past week. You can follow me at Joel Duggan on social media and Joel Duggan on Twitch, where I stream at least 3 days a week.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, and the world below is the domain of the dwarves.